Well, hey everybody, my name is Simon Hargis. I'm a physical therapist, a practice owner, and a second generation PT. So I've been around PT a long time, and I've always been interested in advocacy. I've done a lot of it on the state level and on the federal level through both APTA and APTQI, and I'm here to talk about video number 2 in the American Council of Academic Physical Therapy's advocacy series. So this video, bridging from learning to action, moving from knowing to doing, is a little bit about telling that story and how to have that meeting to give you some structure and some confidence. So in the last video, we touched on how advocacy impacts all sorts of things, from your practice to your patient's practice, the well-being of your patients, like authorization and copay regulations, scope of practice, simple questions like, do we need referrals, to complicated questions like, what's the state board's definition of physical therapy? What we get paid for with our services. A great example is, should dry needling be a covered CPT code? So there's a lot of contemporary issues. There's always things to talk about. But even bigger picture, I think physical therapy impacts public health, community health, access to preventative care. Are we labeled as preventative care? Bigger picture issues like cost of education and what kind of loans we can get and how much federal loans we can get for physical therapy education. In general, I think a big takeaway I'd like to get across to everybody is we really should be and are our best advocates because we have the deepest understanding of what we do and how what we do impacts our patients. And we can be the most powerful voices in advocating that because we're going to come off as the most passionate and knowledgeable. We just didn't need to do more of it. So in today's lecture, let me go and bring up some slides here. We are going to go over kind of the storytelling of how some of these meetings could go based off some of my experience in advocacy. I want to start with a few ideas, some grassroots and community engagement. There's limitless ideas for this. I've brought elected officials into schools to talk about bills. I've gone to senior centers. I've gone to faculty of PT schools just to talk about certain legislation. I've gone to faculty of physician programs to just do a general education on PT. All of those count as advocacies. All of them are great. All of them are things you can try. So some ideas to get you going even while you're on rotation. Local community groups, local legislative offices, especially if you're in a bigger city. A lot of your federal legislators will have offices there, and even some of your state legislators will have offices in and around where you're doing your clinical rotations. You can also go to your state APTA meeting and get exposure that way and bring up certain issues. So there's lots of ways to get involved. But in general, the structure of having a meeting is telling a story. So we're going to kind of do a mock story, a little bit of bullet points around that. And imagine this is at a local legislator's office or a federal legislative office if you're going to like a PTA's Hill Day. So in general, you want to tell a story. Story has a beginning and a middle and an end. First, you get the meeting, you come in, and you introduce yourself and the reason for the conversation. And like I said, this reason could be something specific. Let's say we're talking about the SAFE Act, which is current legislation we're trying to get passed. Or it could be vague. Let's say we're having a meeting with a group of resident students at a teaching hospital to physicians, and we really just want to educate them on all the different things PT can potentially do and how we can communicate better together. But you want to introduce yourself and relate it to yourself. Why is this important to me? Why are you passionate about it? The couple of the bullet points I wanted to show on the screen here, especially if you're doing that general PT meeting, some general PT value proposition ideas. We're low cost. A story I love to tell is about 6 weeks of outpatient physical therapy, one-on-one, seeing a physical therapist 2 or 3 times a week is the same cost as an MRI. It really gets people's heads turning and their brains clicking on when they realize, wow, we're going to interact with these people a ton, and it's very, very low cost. We're frontline. We can see people before there's a lot of downstream costs. We can evaluate musculoskeletal injuries. We can start to talk to them after that first fall before there's a big injury. And we're high touch. across the plan of care, we're going to interact more with this patient than most healthcare providers. And that's not to be adversarial. That's to say, we're going to really get to know your patient and we're going to be really impactful. And we can save a lot of downstream costs. So in general, if you find your spot or your meeting in a place where it's not something specific, it's more of, tell me about the value proposition of PT. Those are great places to go. If you are doing something specific, try to have handouts. Specific things will usually have talking points. It might be about legislation. It might be about a particular regulation you want to talk about. And leaving people with information is really important because often you'll be talking to somebody who's there, especially in legislative offices, whose job is to take that information and then give it to the people that are actually going to make a decision or have more impact. Make it personal. Relate what you're talking about to yourself. They are going to have a lot of meetings. They want to look back and think about, oh, this is the person that had a grandmother that fell and it was preventative. This is the person that got into PT because they had an injury and it was really impactful to them. You want them to be able to remember you, so you need to make it personal. That's the beginning. The middle, explain the topic, especially if you have talking points, especially if you have some handouts. Relate it back to your story. Have a story associated, either a patient story or your own story, and then ask them what they know about PT. Sometimes that's the best icebreaker. Oh, my grandmother got PT. Oh, yeah, I got PT. Oh, I have no idea what PT is. And then you can go back to our value proposition, explain a little bit about it, but relate it to their priorities and try to make it personal to them. The other thing that I'm going to put in the middle of this is, when possible, have an ask. It's okay just to have the meeting to express, hey, here's some information on a topic. But if you can have an ask, here's information, and I would love it if you would give it to this person. I would love it if you'd give me feedback. I'd love it if we can have more follow-up meetings to talk more about this after you've thought about it. Or can I come back with additional information as things change? Having an ask allows it not to be as passive. It allows it to be as active, and it also allows you to follow up and say, hey, did you get a chance to process the information? Did you get a chance to think about what I said? Hey, can we have a follow-up meeting? Because I thought that went great and I'd love to talk about this next thing. Your goal here is to develop a relationship with the person you're talking to and introduce the idea of coming back and telling them more or telling them again as things progress, especially with legislation. That's super important because it can be a really long process. So you want the opportunity to talk with folks multiple times or on multiple different issues and establish a relationship with them. The end. Super important steps. Exchange contact information. Leave the information on the topic if it exists. Email them to thank them for the meeting after the meeting, reiterating main points and the ask or next steps if there is a next step. And plan on going back if you can and establishing a relationship. Real advocacy takes time, takes reputation, takes an exchange of trust and information, and sometimes takes catching up the same person multiple times and pushing that ball for a little bit farther forward each time. If you stick to those steps, it can be really easy, it can be really rewarding, but in general, if you haven't done a lot of it, bring some people along. Even if they don't do a lot of talking and they don't get past the introduction phase, having other peers with you to do these meetings takes the edge off. It lowers the pressure. It gives you confidence. And after you do multiple times, you can train around who does most of the talking if you're going to have multiple meetings. It's the best way to get more people involved and also make this feel doable and more comfortable. I appreciate you guys letting me talk to you. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed advocacy and getting used to it and feeling like I can have impact and also feeling like I'm doing something for the profession that I love and the patients that can really use more physical therapy, better access to physical therapy, and a more equitable way of having us reimbursed for our efforts. So I appreciate it. Please let me know if you have any questions. This is an awesome series. We can be the change we need to see if we really take advocacy seriously. So get out there, have some meetings, and that'll get it done. Very appreciated.